God, it's so hard to break out of this music when I start. I wish I could play real music. Copyright. Okay, this is a little spontaneous stream I decided to do. I didn't get to stream yesterday, and I guess I'm jonesing for it. It's just built up, and I just gotta. I have some time today, and so I wanted to take advantage of it and get back on the stream. Also, I will probably do another one later this evening, and maybe even a late night stream after that. Tonight's Big Brother, so I have to at least take a break for that. So anyway, here I am. I don't really have anything planned today. I'm gonna maybe go through a few tweets. As usual, guest. Oh, let me put my banner on. Come on if you want to talk. I really want to find, this is what's on my mind. I want to actually have a very specific conversation about it. I want to talk to some trans people, specifically about their need for having certain pronouns used with them, misgendering, and dead naming. Because we had trans people, I've been around trans people my whole life. Those things were never issues until very recently. So I want to find out from this new generation why suddenly pronouns, dead naming, and misgendering are so controversial. I keep getting a popping sound in my speakers. It's been doing that on Zoom too, and it keeps changing my gain. So anyway, I guess let's start with Twitter. And see what tweets I have. I remember bookmarking a few. Oh, I got to check my, sorry. Just check this real quick. Okay, yeah, looking good. Okay, this is Steve Stewart Williams. He's a good follow. Cognitive biases, there's like all these cognitive biases that psychologists have uncovered or discovered. You probably can't see them. But they're there's a new study came out that says you can basically boil them down into 6. So these are the 6 fundamental beliefs that bias our view of the world. And remember, every human is biased. Our brains all work in a very unique, individual, specific way, not only genetically, but then our experiences feed into that. So we've all had different personal experiences as well. So that combines with our natural biases to form our unique point of view on the world. In fact, there's a quote from Emerson, I'm going to find it in a while, that talks about just that. First assumption or belief, my experience is a reasonable reference. I definitely believe that, especially for me, because my experience is there to guide me on my journey through my life. So it's not necessarily meant for other people, but for me, it's definitely a reasonable reference. It's a database of everything that's got me to the point I am now, and that's worked and hasn't worked. So of course I'm going to draw on that and use it as a go-to reference when I'm faced with new situations or anomalies or chaotic elements. I make correct assessments of the world. Again, that's also based on my experience because I'm usually right. Sometimes I'm wrong. But if I go with, because I've guessed and revised those guesses and refined them and improved them over the last 50-something years. So I do have a sense that I can rely on my guesses more often than not. I am good. Well, I can be good. I can be bad too. I think my intentions are good. Like I don't have ill will or malice toward anybody out there, even the people I hate. I'm pretty much okay with just leaving them alone to do their thing. I don't like to see people hurt. So yes, I do have this bias that I am trying to be good. Like I'm aiming in like the Plato and the white horse and the black horse and the chariot. I'm definitely trying to ride the white horse. My group is a reasonable reference. I don't know who my group is because I'm part of so many different groups and it's always changing. But the people I do affiliate myself with, I do so because of a certain simpatico that's there, or a certain set of shared values. So I usually they're a reasonable reference. I mean, they're not in every single thing and not every person in the group, but I'm definitely gonna I definitely am biased toward my in group, whatever that is at the time, than some group of strangers that I don't even know and don't know me. My group is good. Yeah, they are. I wouldn't be in them if they're not. I go out of my way, and I've talked about this before, to find healthy, functional environments, and I stay away from unhealthy, dysfunctional ones. So I carefully curate my group as best I can so that it is good, or it is healthier, or it does support my growth, or it is a positive influence on my life. That's the like I there's very little I can do about my nature, my physiology, my brain, my genetic stuff, all the physiological stuff that I have no control over. But what I can control is my environmental factors. I can put myself in settings that will influence that genetic stuff in a positive way, or I can put them in situations that will have a negative influence on it. So I do have some control over what factors I'm exposing the biology to be influenced by. People's attributes, not their context, shape outcomes. I talk about context all the time. I definitely think context. This nature nurture. I think it's both. So I don't really understand this sixth one completely because I do make room for context in my thinking. Am I thinking about myself and other people? What is that popping sound? Okay, next tweet. Oh yeah, this one. It's about this tweet about women giving up sport. I don't know why it took so to realize that women are giving up their own sports voluntarily. They're doing it because they think it gives them virtue points. And this guy responds, this is Zuby. Social justice ideology, which wokeness, is pernicious because it weaponizes people's own compassion against themselves and against others. Young women are particularly susceptible to it because they want to be nice and accepted, even if it means sacrificing the truth or themselves. One of the things that frustrates me about wokeness, it frustrates me in general about anything, but wokeness is particularly guilty of it. So the frustration is high there, is the sacrificing of feelings to fact. Truth is important to me. Making sense of things is important to me. Being reality based is important to me. And when people distort that in the name of feelings, for somebody's feelings or for their own feelings, it really, really frustrates me and throws me off. And what he's saying here about wokeness and social justice ideology, I definitely think it's true. I see it weaponize empathy, compassion. They want to be known as kind, empathetic, compassion, but they want to belong to the group that's not. That's the opposite of those things too. And so they don't really care about the actual truth of a situation. They care about the feelings of the situation. And I've seen that in some of my groups, even with non-woke people that are highly intelligent and that do care about the truth. Usually it's around when there's a female in the group who is signaling some kind of distress, emotional or psychological, because certainly not physically on an online group, but they're upset or or being challenged in some way that's causing distress. I notice a lot of the males, like the really intelligent males that should know better, but some of the females too, but particularly I notice it with the males, will start to rationalize things in a way to try to make the woman, like, try to minimize her distress, even if that rationalizing means not being completely faithful to the truth. And these are people that are in any other situation, I've seen them autistically obsessed about truth. But then when a distressed female comes around, there's like this distortion field where the priority of alleviating her distress, it takes priority over the actual truth and facts of the situation. And it throws me off every time. Like, why are these really smart people who should know better and in every other situation could spot this in someone else? It seems deliberate and voluntary, like they know that's not the truth, but they're still going to do it anyway because emotionally they're compelled to. They just can't sit there and watch this woman be distressed. So it's also to like help diminish their own feelings of distress that they're experiencing by watching this female be distressed. Okay, this other tweet is I talked about that Northrop Frye essay we read in The Myths of Concern versus the Myths of Freedom. And this is an example. I'm not going to go through the whole tweet, but it's a thread on how World War II became a dark foundation myth. Foundation myth is another way you could describe a myth of concern. A foundation myth is a narrative that serves as the bedrock of a society's collective identity. It's the stories that the group tells itself to, or the members of the groups tell themselves to keep the group together. It gives the group an identity, meaning, coherence, and that World War II is a modern version of a foundation myth. So it's Underlord on Twitter, _Underlord. If you're interested, you can go and read it. So that's really all I have about Twitter today. Oh, let's see. No, not that. The other thing I thought I would do, just because it was on my mind, oh, hang on. There's a guy. We want to have a debate on the death of the author concept, and he might stop by a stream one day, but it's not going to be right now. But anybody else that wants to can come by. What was I talking about? I want to do the you know how the Greek language has different words for love? I wanted to go over those. Hey, Jeff. What's up? If you're not doing anything, you can come on and talk. If you want. I started streaming more. I try to do it every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. It's really just holding a space for people to come and have conversations with other interesting people that they might not get to have elsewhere. Or you can just watch. I'm going to go over I want to talk about the different types of love. Driving home, be there soon. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I will see you soon. We haven't caught up in a while. Let me share this. I don't think I'm going to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to kind of show that what we call love or attachment or desire is very nuanced. You have sexual desire, eros, lust, attraction, infatuation. I get it for music, like music groups, book artists. There's directors that it's not a sexual desire, but it's a passion. It's something that attracts me towards them and keeps me engaged with them. Fascinates me about them. Philia, soul connection. Is this the platonic love? I've had this before with people. Less so now, and I don't know that because of that's all like my own damage. I call myself a burnout empath. I don't make the connections with people that I used to be able to make, and part of it, I think, is my ability to do it is damaged. But another part is, I think, a recognition that the connections that I thought I was making in the past weren't what I thought they were. So now it's some skepticism and doubt that even when the connection is being made, is it Philia? Is it this soul connection? Because in the past, if it felt like a soul connection, I just took it for granted that it was a soul connection. And that didn't turn out always to be the case. And that's very painful disillusionment to go through. And so now I don't let myself get comfortable thinking that something is a soul connection. Combined with, I think, my capacity to form them has been greatly impaired through past trauma. Storge, devoted love, within a family. I've had this before too. I have no problem being loyal and devoted to people as long as I am very loyal, but I'm not stupidly loyal. I'm not going to be loyal to self-destruction or dysfunction. If I'm not going to be loyal to drug use or abusing people, like there's a line at which point I can pull back my loyalty if it's not helpful to me or to the other person or beneficial to both of us or somehow contributing that person's dysfunction. So I don't take loyalty to stupid links like I see some people do. Pragma, mature love. This is the love that kind of keeps relationships going. Mike and I definitely had this. I've had it with friends. It's kind of the engine that keeps relationships going. There's nothing that exciting about it, but it's very grounding. Like it can ground a relationship. Or like I use art because for me, there's very little difference in loving or attaching to a person or to the creation of a person, like a work of art, a book. I've had entire like parasocial, I get, let's just say, either with the creators or their works themselves, maybe characters from the works. So I don't make that much of a distinction between parasocial attachment and interpersonal attachment, other than there's like a mutuality and a two-way dynamic. If it's with an actual person, you get an extra, many extra dimensions and an extra richness to it that you don't get when it's just you attached to this impersonal object or remote author or creator that's parasocial. Ludus, playful love. I definitely have this. They say it's the polar opposite of pragma, but I have both. Carefree and playful love, and that's not being a hoe and sleeping around. It's more. It sounds like it's more the stance that you take with this kind of love. Flirting, teasing, seduction, casual sex. I don't have that. I'm horrible at seduction. I'm horrible at flirting. I'm horrible at telling when other people are flirting to me. But I do have this kind of playful hedonism where I will self-indulge in whatever catches my fancy. And again, it could be art, experiences, social connections. If they're both like we're both engaged in this, not to the point like I won't be careless or cavalier about a connection that the other person's not also. But sometimes people have these little playful connections that are kind of mutual that don't really mean anything to either. Well, they mean something in the sense that this is a valid type of love, but they don't mistake it for anything other than ludus. This says it's not limited to physical or sexual relationships. It can also comprise non-sexual activities, dancing, drinking. These are like in the gay world growing up, they were your bar friends or your club friends. You'd see them at the club and you develop relationships with them at the club, but you really didn't have a connection outside of that. It was just for that night of having fun at the club and dancing and drinking and whatever else we would do. Mania. I know this from the mental health world. Obsessive love. I had this with one of the exes, the first ex, the narcissistic one. I'm very embarrassed about it now, looking back. Like, how did I ever get obsessive about this absolute loser. But at the time, I knew at the time I could feel myself going into it because I left him. It was in Vegas, and I left Vegas and I got in my car and I was going back to Louisiana. And as I was driving back to Louisiana, like as I was getting out of Vegas onto the freeway, it hit me that I didn't want to be doing this, and it was too late. And um, that's what kicked in. And I could feel myself going into it. I could feel how crazy it was, and I can't. It was the same guy that Mike had dated. After I left, he met Mike, and so Mike and I met because we had both been burned by the same ex, and that bonded us together. But and that's really kind of when I started to come out of it. Mike and I both helped to pull each other out of it and transfer it onto each other in a more healthy way. And so I definitely have felt this before, but it's a miserable, miserable feeling. I never want to feel this again for anybody. It's not. There's nothing rational about it. There's nothing about it that's in your control. You're just kind of at the mercy of it. It's like a roller coaster. It takes you all over the place. It lasts forever. It can last for years. I hate it. I hate mania. Meraki, creative endeavors like passion, the love that you put into something you do. I try to put that into the streaming. We had a really good stream yesterday, day before yesterday. There were about five of us on. We got into every topic under the sun, a lot of men's stuff, men's mental health, and it was the exact type of conversation that I was trying to make happen on the stream. It's representative of a lot of conversations that happen in my groups, but it was finally one that I could capture live, that like raw, spontaneous, just to me, it's just it's a type of magic. And that kind of inspired me. I want as many of those as I can possibly get on the stream. And you can't plan for them. They really just happen. So I want to keep creating the space that they can happen in. And so I'm trying to I didn't have a lot of passion. I'm a very passionate person, but the projects I'm doing have to reach a certain threshold before I will actually seriously put this kind of Meraki into them. Because when they're the experimental phase, I'm less attached to any particular outcome. So it's hard to get that passion. But once I see them going in the direction that I want to go, that passion kicks in. And then I can start putting all of myself into them. Philatia, from autism, which means self. It's self-love. But this is healthy self-love, like healthy self-esteem, self-regard, the kind of care about yourself that allows you to have set healthy boundaries and keep yourself out of destructive situations, that kind of stuff. I've always had a healthy sense of self. Like growing up, even when I was a kid, like very young, 4, 5, 6 years old, I've always had this instinct for when I'm in a unhealthy environment, like when the people around me are not acting in a healthy way or dysfunctional, and I've always been able to like gravitate or find a healthy environment to move to. So I was constant. It's like a reptile where they move from the cold temperatures to get warm or vice versa. I've always been able to like regulate my inner health by regulating the environment that I put myself in. And I had my grandmother that lived across the street, and it was a very healthy environment. So like if there was dysfunction at home, I could go across the street to her house. I could go to a friend's house. If there was dysfunction at a friend's house, I could go back home. Like I was never stuck in one environment. I always had a selection of environments that I could move to when I needed to. And so that I've always had that healthy sense of this is not good for you to be in. Go find something that's going to keep you healthy, because I had this healthy sense of self or identity. Agape, unconditional love. I used to have this more when I was younger. It's not that I don't have it now. I'm just detached from it and indifferent. I have a hard time caring about things that don't immediately affect me now. because it's like starving children in Africa is a phenomena of your imagination. You're not actually materially impacted immediately by any starving children. So it's a narrative that's generated by your imagination more than it's connected to anything concrete that you can see and touch. And so I think over time, as I started to see that, it became harder and harder to have like this universal investment in everything because it was an idealized and it wasn't attached to anything concrete. And I really work best with things that are very particularly concrete in front of me that there's a sensory component to it that I can grasp hold of. So I just wanted to review those. Thought they were kind of interesting. Let me check YouTube. Nothing on Facebook. Are you smart or French? What is that? Oh, it's coming up in a. I don't know. I follow these people. I click on them because they look interesting at the time, and then I have no idea who they are once I get their notifications. Okay, not much going on YouTube. Although, let me check my history. Leslie Elliott from the Radical Center. She has a YouTube podcast. She interviews different people who are kind of, I guess, dealing with wokeness or social justice in their mental health profession. She did a good stream today with a guy that was dealing with it, and I could relate a lot to it because I'm in the field I'm in, peer counseling, especially here in Washington State, is very left leaning. And so I'm always kind of surrounded by it, but I've also managed to keep myself isolated from it at the same time where I can still do the work I need to do and help the people I need to help. Because the type of people I help, most of the other people in the field they don't know what to do with them. So they kind of just leave me alone to help them. And they don't interfere with me much with what I do. So I've kind of been on the periphery of it or the margins of the wokeness that's around Washington State. I don't know if y'all know this. Let's take a look at this because this is it's really eye popping. Find it. Washington State they were the first state to have a entire like a state department of diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, which the men's movement, at least that I'm in, has changed inclusion to belonging. So now it's diversity, equity, and belonging. And it's all about do you feel like you belong? What are the ways you feel like you belong? What are the ways you don't feel like you belong? So I think it changes the focus from other people, including you, to a more internal experience. Are you experiencing the benefit of being included, which translates as belonging? And I actually don't have a problem with that. Because I use my feelings of belonging to determine which groups I should continue to be a part of or not. If I don't feel like I belong to a group or I'm on the outside or the margin looking in and I don't really have a path to contribute usefully to that group, I'm probably not going to stay in it. So anyway, they were the first state to have a Department of DEI, and now every state employee is mandated. If you work for the state, if you are an employee of any state agency in Washington State, and this is in their laws, that what are they called? Revised statutes. You have to take a mandatory DEI training. It's in 4 parts. It's called A Path Toward Equity: Disrupting Structural Racism Through Awareness and Belonging. That is the title of this mandatory training that you have to take if you are a state employee. We're going to look at their curriculum. See, right here. Tell me. It's part of a statewide culture change effort to ensure government systems serve Washingtonians with equity and justice. because they have this belief that they're not. Like, they see disparities and they're like, oh, that must mean we're all racist, and that's why there's these disparities. Look at the training. Instructor-led modules. Racism as a foundation is the first one you have to go to. Race and racism are difficult concepts. So every employee of the state is being taught this, being indoctrinated into this ideology. This is government mandated. Racism, prejudice, discrimination, facilitated conversation, group engagement, and introspective activities. I don't want, none of that should be part of my employment. Their ability to understand and differentiate between misunderstood and misused terms. Don't talk to me about misused terms when y'all are the ones changing all the current meanings of all the terms in the first place, and then turning around pointing at us like we're the ones misusing them. That's such a low tactic and a misunderstanding of how language works. Speaking of misunderstood, racism as a structure will teach learners the structural components of racism: cultural, institutional, and individual. So there's cultural racism, whatever that is. There's institutional, I guess that's the systemic, where our policies and institutions are designed to be racist, although they can never show me the actual policies that are racist. And individual, which is going to be the unconscious bias, the implicit bias, which is not real. We all have bias. I don't believe in unconscious bias. If we're biased, we know that we're biased. And if we're biased against people because of their skin color, that's racism. But I don't think it exists in the proportions that these people do. The learner will engage with these components to better understand the pervasiveness of structural racism. It's pervasive, y'all. It's everywhere. It is. You cannot escape it. Every institution. It's in the brick. It's in the paint color. It's everywhere in these institutions. Just racism all over the place, everywhere. Listen to this. Understanding common ideological barriers to challenge the. This is ideology. Barriers to challenge the structure. So, but for these ideological barriers, they would be able to challenge the structure. Colorblindness and meritocracy. Colorblindness is seeing people as an individual and not judging them by their group demographic. They're calling that ideology and a barrier to challenging racism. This is the state government of Washington. And meritocracy, being rewarded in proportion to your ability and your competence. Those are barriers, ideological barriers. They're not real. They're not real things. They're an ideology that you've absorbed or been brainwashed in. This is total projection, because this racism, systemic or whatever, CRT crap, is an ideological barrier to connecting to and understanding and being in a society with your fellow man. But they're making it look like we are the ones with the ideology that's creating the barrier to them tearing down society because they think it's racist. Number 3, feeling like an outsider, the cost of being othered. The concept of othering. What does any of this have to do with like processing driver's license or whatever these state employees do? They're all bureaucrats. They sit in little offices in basements and do paperwork, 9% of them. By examining the lived experience of an individual being othered, the course will explore the origins of othering behavior. I think bureaucracy is other. I think this entire state government is the most othering thing I've ever experienced. How are they? I would not trust them to be the ones to teach other people about othering and how not to do it, because they have the least awareness of it themselves. And then this is the one that got me: belonging, moving from them to us. It sounds nice, right? Belonging, moving from them, where we see people as the other, like they do Republicans and white male Christian heterosexual men, to us. All of a sudden, they're going to see all these people as an us. Like they're ever going to see white straight men as an us. Listen to this. Using psychological theory. Who are these people? Using psychological theory and innovative interventions. Using psychological theory and innovative interventions. I don't want these people using any kind of interventions on me, much less the innovative ones that they think they've. What are these interventions, and what are these innovations that you're going to be using on the learners that are mandated by the government to take this training? This is the big. This flag is so big and so red. Learners will be able to understand how belonging uncertainty leads to the maintenance of traditional othering, and they'll gain strategies to foster belonging in all of state government. Because that's what you do. You go to get your ID or your driver's license or register your vehicle so that you can feel belonging in the state government. Of course, that is the priority of why these people are at the behind the DMV counter. This is so alien universe to me. So I wanted to show that this is the state I live in and all the stuff that they're up to. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. I didn't see you. Okay, now we can have Jeff. Come on. I'm going to quit talking. What's up? Oh, I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. I wish StreamYard would give me a little bell or something when people show up because I never notice them.
I think it's in the settings. You can change it, like a little ding or something.
Oh, let me see. What's it called? Is it audio? Guests. Play a sound when guests enter. Perfect. I can set this where you I'm gonna set it where guests can stream if they want. So what is up with you?
Not much. Just dealing with some stuff from work and transitioning, I guess.
Transitioning from one work to another.
Yeah, not genders or anything.
Hey, Patty, I'm going through my clothes. Hey, good to see you. It's always good to see Patty. So, you're getting another job?
Yeah, I'm trying to get off night shift. It's kind of killing me. And sorry, I'm just trying to set this to my stream real quick. Yeah, trying to get another job. I just had a lot of drama and stuff go there. I didn't want to get involved. They're like just cracking down unreasonably and not being very cool. Like I worked overnights at this drug rehab place, and once the clients go to bed, you can pretty much, where you used to be able to go do what you want. So I was able to like take my laptop and edit and write scripts and all that stuff, but they kind of cracked down on that. So I was like, I have no reason to be here. Then there's a lot of drama, and they kind of made me an example and stuff like that. Wrote me up.
Oh, you got written up for like
Yeah.
working on non-work stuff?
Well, this guy, the new supervisor or lead that took over, told them that he saw me hiding in a room on my laptop twice when he only told me once. Then he went and cried to everyone, the administrators, about every little thing, and it's just like a miserable place to work now.
I've been there. That's usually what you describe is usually about the time when I know I need to start looking around and tidying up my office. Either the firing is coming up. It's kind of a cat and mouse game at that point. Am I going to get out before I get fired? Or are they going to get me before I get out? But I can tell when that shift happens, and then I know the end is coming. Like it's weeks to a couple of months max.
Yeah, and things are just going so slowly. I don't know how well versed your audience is in astrology, but there's a lot of retrogrades going on, and I was trying to apply through a new job for the Mercury retrograde, which was like the worst time ever to do it.
What is that? What does Mercury retrograde do?
Mercury is the planet of like communication. So everything kind of goes backwards. It's the fastest moving, most energetic planet. So when it's going retrograde, for people who don't know what a retrograde is, pretty much where you look at the orbit in the sky of the planet and you observe it over the next few days or whatever, it appears to be going backwards instead of forwards. And the reason is because Mercury is in a spot where it's kind of in the longest stretch around the orbit of the sun. And from Earth, it appears, because our orbit's going faster than Mercury's currently, or actually we got out of the retrograde, but so that time everything kind of screws up. Everyone has higher emotions and tension. It seems like my son has been really having some aggressive behaviors, but it's calming down now since the retrograde's kind of going station. But it's kind of weird. It happens all the time. It happens 3 or 4 times a year, and every time it happens, my son has like behavior problems. We both get super tired. It's the planet of energy, and it makes that go backwards, and we're just kind of like dead and droll, and it's kind of interesting and fun. It kind of just resets things for people. But you're not really
How
supposed to.
How long does it last?
Usually about 3 weeks, but there's a 3-week period before and afterwards of what they call the retro shade. So it kind of have the lingering effect of it. So it went direct on the 15th. So we're still kind of having that lingering effect.
And this is an effect of how it appears to us here on Earth. The Mercury's not really moving backwards.
No, it's like an optical illusion, basically. We're also in a Saturn retrograde. We just got out of Venus retrograde, and we just went into a Jupiter retrograde. So,
oh Lord, what do all those do?
Jupiter is kind of the planet of prosperity. What else? Like good fortune, kind of working for things, like being like Santa Claus type figure. And Jupiter retrogrades aren't as bad, but the Saturn retrograde is about restriction, security limitations, things like that. Like the place I work at is very Saturnian. There's security cameras all over the place. They're just watching you, kind of micromanaging you. So that's Saturn. It's also about discipline and stuff. And Venus is about love, romance, relationships, making money, things like that. I was watching some like stuff on YouTube and reading about Venus retrograde. It said you'll have a redundancy in your pay and stuff like that. And that's possible. So there's a lot of retrogrades right now, and just kind of makes things tense usually. Is that the
Are they always happening? Like it was one planet or another always?
No, there's times where they're all direct. Like I was looking at my birth chart, and we're talking about we did your birth chart too, but I was born during a lot of retrograde planets, and my son was too. So it's always kind of tricky.
So they might affect you more because of your birth.
They say they affect you less, but it seems to affect you more. I know this is like off topic about you're talking about love and the different types of love and stuff, but
I don't have a topic. We talk about whatever.
Just going on here randomly.
So what do you have a new job?
I'm trying to get one. Excuse me, allergies. It's a crisis mobile response. So basically when people are in crisis, they call 911.
Oh yeah.
If the police aren't needed, we go. So I'm waiting on that. I start October 9th if the background checks go good, but things like background checks during a retrograde, which I started during a retrograde, usually doesn't work well during a retrograde, but hopefully all things go through because they're calling my they're checking my jobs and stuff and doing references there, and they might not give me a good reference. There's a chance I might not get this job and I'll be stuck there for a while. So I'm just trying to get out while I can, for they sweep the rug from underneath me.
I never use the jobs I get fired from as references. Sometimes I'll find a person in there that can be a reference if I have a good relationship with a single person. But I almost never refer a new employer to a past employer I've had difficulty with.
I know, but it's my current employer, so I kind of had to use them, unfortunately.
Oh, right, because you're still working there.
Is that the Patty that's from the gifted group on Facebook, or is that different Patty?
Oh no, not that Patty. She's from some other streams.
Okay.
She cool.
Okay. Hey. All right. So what were you discussing right now? I was kind of in and out of it.
Nothing really. I have like these things that I have as content in case I don't have a guest, but guests have priority. I really just want this to be a stream. Like eventually, I hope it's nothing but guests.
It's hard to get guests on. I think every
people just drop in.
How's that working for you? Have you got any trolls yet?
Not on camera. I've had some trolls. One big troll, he knows who he is, in the comments. But then I've gone on other people's streams, and they tend to draw. And they're not like anonymous trolls. These are regulars that go on, but they harass the people on the streams. They argue, they fight, they cause drama and dysfunction. But for some reason, they let them sit on the stream for hours and hours doing this. So I've been on the receiving end of some of those trolls, along with a lot of other people.
I thought about doing that, just leaving an open invitation for anyone who wants to come on, but I'm afraid of like just trolls coming on, and pretty sure it's a way to kick them off and stuff, but I don't know.
Well, I have to know them. So if I know them, I let them on. But if I don't know them, then I have to at least see them on camera backstage before they come
Yeah.
on. But like on some streams, people will come on and then they'll play porn or obscene images or put racist stuff to disrupt the stream.
These people just don't have lives, I guess. They just don't do anything besides screw with people.
I mean, they're troll. They've been doing this since the beginning of the internet. AOL even had trolls.
Yeah.
But I've been doing the open stream format lately, and I've watched other people do it, and it really seems to be working. That is definitely the trend of the direction that I want to see this go. PF Jung started doing it on his, and he's been having some fantastic panels lately. We had a good panel the other night. So that's, I think when you give people that opportunity to just kind of spontaneously interact with other random people,
Yeah, I might give it a try.
things happen that don't happen on a planned stream.
I might give it a try. I don't think I have enough vocal skills to kind of keep the thing going myself until if somebody comes on.
Yeah, you just find, if you find there's kind of an art to it. You have to find the right amount of guest, which one or two interesting guests is perfect, and the right guest. So it's really like attracting the right combination of people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you do it one day, I'll drop by for sure. I love dropping in on streams.
Cool. I might look into that next week or so.
I'm subscribed to you, so as long as it shows up on YouTube when you're live, or you can just put it in your server too.
All right, yeah, I'll let everyone know. I'm sure if I decide to do it, maybe next week or maybe even next day or two, I'll consider it. What's been new with you? You still thinking about moving or what?
Oh man, I want to so, but I don't like it here, and I feel. I mean, it feels very first world, and I should feel some kind of guilt or shame for even complaining because it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. Like I really am living in a place that most people would do a lot to live in.
Mm-hmm.
But the people here are miserable. Like they make me miserable. Like the cultural incompatibility is so great. I'm isolated. I'm more isolated here than I was in the South growing up. Like there's no point in being in a place, no matter how scenic it is, if you're just going to be alone on your own little island the whole time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like everyone thinks the Sonoran Desert is like the most beautiful thing in the world. I've seen it my whole life. I'm kind of tired of it. But yeah, the people here are kind of nuts too.
Oh, Arizona was one of the places I was looking at.
Yeah.
People here are nuts in in two ways, politically and ideologically, they're woke.
Yeah.
I just read that thing about the DEI, mandatory DEI training for all state employees. It's like this 4-module training all about systemic racism. And then socially, like psychologically and they're all introverts. They're kind of xenophobic, misanthropic. If you're an outsider, there's a hostility toward you. There's a thing called the Seattle Freeze, which is very real. And you feel it less outside of Seattle, but still the whole state, they're not social, friendly, welcoming people. And if you are, that's reacted negatively against. It's not even a strength here. Like you would think you could go somewhere and be a people person and have that be somewhat of a strength in some way, but here it's just nothing but a liability.
It's kind of like, I guess, in Scandinavia where it's kind of frowned upon to make prolonged eye contact with people and like chat people up on the streets and stuff like that.
Yes,
I think I do well in an environment like that.
There's a big Scandinavian influence here. And
yeah,
I think that is part of it.
I'd probably do well in something like that besides, all the snow.
Introverts love it. Like they really thrive here because there's not a lot of expectation to be social or engage. You're kind of free to do your own thing. But then if you do try to be socially engaged, you're a weirdo. Yeah. A freak.
I think it's more extroverted down here. A lot of big Mexican influence, and they're having these big parties and stuff all the time. So
I would love that.
Yeah. How come you don't
I-
go back to the South? It sounds like you just fit in there better.
I don't know how intellectually stimulating it would be. Although, as long as I have, it's not very intellectually stimulating here either. But as long as I have internet,
Yeah. You can
I,
pretty much
I,
talk to
I
anybody in the
I
world, you
can
know?
get my intellectual needs taken care of. The food is definitely better. The people are a lot friendly. Like I'm less weird. I'm weird for different ways in the South. I guess it depends on what kind of weirdo I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather be weird for being a nerd than weird for being a people person.
Yeah, I get it. I lived in East Texas for like 6 months. It was like going back in time 15 years to me. I don't know. It felt weird. That's like the beginning of the South, I guess, if you're coming from the West.
What what part of East Texas?
There's a little town called Henderson. It's kind of like smack between Tyler and Longview. It's like I was like
Oh, is it
60
by
miles from
Beaumont?
Shreveport.
Oh,
Beaumont.
that part of Texas.
Yeah, I wasn't too far from
Turkana.
Louisiana. Yeah, it's kind of like where you can start seeing bogs and stuff on the side of the road. It's kind of cool. I never seen like a full on swamp, but like little bogs here and there.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's like the edge of where Louisiana topography starts.
Yeah, it was a nice change for a while, but I don't know. It was just weird. That was a
I
long
think
time
I
ago.
could do Texas. I've lived in Texas before. It's big enough and diverse enough. Um,
I thought
I'm
about
still looking at
Austin.
Utah. I lived in Austin. Austin's very. It was. I lived in Austin in 1991, 92, and it was even woke then.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
know it's woke now.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know how it is now because all those Californians moved there, but
The only thing
like
that
all
tempers Austin is it's at the mercy of the rest of Texas. So it doesn't have the like Seattle here has the power to set the agenda and the ethos for the entire state, but Austin
Mhm.
does not have that power because it has three other larger cities to check it, and then the rurals in Texas have an enormous amount of voting power.
Yeah, there's just so many rural communities in Texas. Like there's like a little village of like 35 people, 200 people, 500 people, 50 people, just scattered all over the place.
Oh, your wife is from Austin. Did you live? Is that where you met her, or you can come on too if you want, Machine? It was okay. I was there for like about 8 months, but I left too because it wasn't. It was when I was there. It was real progressive. Like I was looking to get out of the South and be somewhere more progressive, somewhere more accepting of gays and lesbians, somewhere more. It was more intellectual. They had an intellectual culture there. So at the time, it was everything I was looking for. But even then, I could notice some of the little things that we see now that were popping up then that they just kind of appeared innocent at the time. And they had that's where I got involved in the men's group. They had men's groups that would meet and they would do men's weekends out in the hill country. Don't blame Californians.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, but Californians are responsible for a lot of shit. Any of y'all could come on, by the way. In lieu of not embarrassing myself for raccoon, you do not have raccoon eye. I mean, they're. I don't think there's anything wrong with the eyes. I don't think they're raccoon. They're definitely distinct, but if you're self-conscious about them, then they have filters too, or at least Zoom did. I don't know if StreamYard does.
I don't think they do. Did you finally bite the bullet and get a paid subscription?
Yes. Oh my God, that's another thing. I discovered StreamYard. I switched to StreamYard. Zoom was so constrained. Like I can't. Zoom was like I can't believe I even tried to do a podcast with Zoom all these years.
I know that premium pay is. I got to pay that sometime this month, $250.
Oh,
Is
you
that
do
what
it
you paid?
annually?
I did it annually. I think you save some money doing it.
Yeah, you do. I'm doing it monthly for now, just to try it out. I can always upgrade.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah, I
Californians
love
moved here to Tucson and Phoenix and stuff here too, and it's kind of a good thing because we were way too Republican here. We're way too conservative, and it kind of made Arizona a swing state. Interestingly enough,
So it's just you need a balance because they did that in Vegas too. If there's too many of them, they change things too much. But if there's
Yeah.
just enough of them, you get that balance.
Kind of what side of stupid you're gonna pick, and at least you have equal amount of stupidity. At least it kind of balances itself out, I guess.
Filters are evil. Well, all of technology is evil, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
can
looked
be.
at Zoom has avatars now where you could be like a little cartoon character, and I tried a few of them out, but I didn't like any of them. They all look dumb.
Is it like real bad, like the backgrounds where you're like moving around and you can see like the toilet in your background or whatever? Would they have like on
Well,
like a mountains or
I don't
beach or
stream
something?
from my bathroom, so I don't know.
Uh,
Paul did PF Young did a debate. He did a panel. It was a WIC panel, and one of them was this trans creature, and her whole screen was this cartoon cat with like this cartoon bedroom in the background, and she was awful. And he's sitting there arguing and fighting with this little cat who's actually a trans person, saying all this ignorant trans stuff, and it was surreal. Yeah, I don't know if I want cats or like cartoon people on my stream. You might have to be an actual person. You could be like Machine and have a really cool real life persona. You could come on with whatever outfits you want. I've streamed with my horns. I have some had some Satan horns and I have some deer antlers that I've worn before. So you can come. I love costumes, Halloween's coming up. I come from Mardi Gras culture, so you're welcome to come looking however you want. But don't try to hide behind a cartoon or an
yeah,
avatar.
I don't got very many
Yeah, that's what I
costumes
was
or
saying.
anything.
That is your line. That's why I was saying it, because I would think that you would think not only filters are evil, but all of it. What were you gonna say, Jeff?
I was gonna say I'm not much of a costume person myself. I dress pretty basic and boring, I guess.
Are you doing anything for Halloween?
Well, if I got this new job, I'm working, but if I don't or I'm working a different job, then I'll take my son trick or treating.
Oh, fun. They still have trick or treating there?
Yeah, they don't have trick or treating there.
Well, we were talking about that on the last stream, how like safety, like nobody's taking their kids trick or treating anymore. They do trunk or treat, or they take them to like churches will have a Halloween community gathering. And the people, because one of my favorite things to do in Vegas when we had the house and everything, I would dress up in spooky stuff and I would play my spooky satanic music, and I would get the front porch all spooky looking, and I love passing out candy to the kids and trying to scare them. It's just one of my favorite things to do. And now people that do that now, they say they get 2 or 3 kids, maybe 4 kids all night will come to their house.
Yeah, there has been a decrease. I thought COVID kind of did it, and I guess people were like, "Oh, I don't know, we're just going to do this now." People are so like they act like we live in the safest times ever. The media just sensationalizes like all the bad things, and people think it's like the worst time in history. But we're actually in the most peaceful time in history.
Is that because hysteria sells ads, like fear and negative
Yeah,
emotions sell ads?
yeah, they got the algorithm down of just scaring the shit out of people so they watch, and everyone's just afraid of their own shadows these days.
That's another thing I love about streaming and YouTube is it's not ad driven. At least I know they have ads on YouTube, but I don't watch them. Like I
Hey, what's
never see
up,
an
Oklahoma?
ad. The ads don't ever interrupt my conversations. It's pretty much an ad free environment. Zoom is the same way. Hey, Oflamio here. Oflamio.
Hey, you should come on. I got to get going in a minute to go get my son from the bus, but Flamo's always a hoot.
Yeah, any of you can come on. I block the ads too. I don't see them. That's why people make a big deal about YouTube and their ad industry. Who is even watching them? Everybody I know has ad blockers.
You ever sit down and watch a YouTube ad? It is like the craziest thing ever. It's like this just like weird, crazy conspiratorial stuff, and it just goes on like a video. Like, oh my god, it's just kind of entertaining itself. And it just
every now and then somebody I'll when they do show up, I skip them. Like if I'm on someone else's computer, I can skip them. On my computer, they're all ad blocked. And then some people will show them on their stream and won't have an ad block, so you'll have to sit through the ad. But I don't ever pay attention. I grew up with TV, and we had ads. It was just a normal part of life. Like you didn't have the option not to
Yeah.
play ads. So I learned to tune them out. When the ads came on, I could just ignore them and wait for the show to come back on.
Yeah, I can't figure a good ad blocker for my iPhone, but like I'll set my phone down and go do something, and like cue a video to come on, and like an ad will come on, and like what the hell are they talking about? It's kind of funny though, and like they're like YouTube is like super anti-conspiratorial. People like they crack down on Alex Jones and stuff, but they're fucking ads. They're just like ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They crack down because of the advertising. They don't. Oh, Dolbez, good to see you. They don't. They don't want the advertisers associated with anything that might impact their brand. So
Mm-hmm.
they cancel people and police people and patrol content for the advertisers, not for us.
I wonder if there's like a rogue YouTube type option that's out there that I'm not even aware of.
There's Rumble, there's Odyssey, there's BitChute. They just don't have the viewership that YouTube has.
Have you ever tried them?
I haven't had a reason to yet because I haven't had I'm surprised, but I haven't had a strike or anything yet. I'm sure there's one in my future.
Yeah.
But until that happens, I'm not going to be motivated to. I'm just lazy. It's just so easy to fire up YouTube. To be fair, let's see what Dobez says. You pay for you. Oh, I pay for it too. Actually, I have YouTube Music, which gives you YouTube Red. To be fair, though, some ads are hilarious. Watching some funny Japanese ads or Norwegian funny ads compilation. Post some.
The Japanese are weird with their media. They'll watch anything over there.
Yeah, they're weird with everything. They've always seemed weird to me. Even growing up, we watched the Godzilla movies, and even all that was weird. Fun.
I'd love to. Yeah,
but weird. But then, who am I to talk?
Yeah, I would love to go to Japan one day. All the freaky stuff they do, I'd probably fit right in.
I don't know if I could eat their food. It's all I don't eat seafood.
Yeah, I hate seafood too. I'm not a fucking cat. At least you live by the sea. I live like in the middle of a desert, and like it just like it's not fresh. I'll eat like fresh caught fish or something every once in a while, but like once or twice a year because my uncle's like a fishing addict.
I grew up on all that, but I lost my taste for it. So I'll eat crawfish, shrimp, and lobster, like the ones with the tails. That's the only thing I could eat. Nothing else.
Yeah, my uncle, him and my dad are like camping near a lake pretty much for the summer to get out of the heat here. And he just catches crawdads, like hundreds of them, and just eats them.
Where? In Arizona?
Yeah.
Y'all have crawfish?
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere. Well, where there's water, at least. In northern Arizona, there's a lot more water. They live like in the forest.
Okay, that's another in the plus column. How's the air up there? It's ridiculously smoky here. In Arizona or in Washington? Are y'all having fire issues?
We haven't had too many this year, luckily. But it's kind of finally cooling down a little bit, but it goes up. But it's kind of hot and dry here still. Didn't have a very good monsoon rainy season, unfortunately.
A few weeks ago, we had a little bit of stuff in the air from the mountains, but for maybe like a week. It wasn't that bad though. Not like it was during 2020.
Oh no, yeah, everything was on fire that year.
Yeah, Seattle, it was orange. The whole sky was orange for like days. I'd never seen anything like it. The smoke is from Oregon. Oh yeah, my friend in Oregon said they had fires all around where she lives. They had put them out, but they had like 7 or 8 wildfires around her town.
I gotta get going. I gotta go to my.
Okay, good. Well, good to see you. And let me know if you do a stream.
Yeah, maybe I will in the next few days, or at least next week sometime. I'll experiment with it.
And feel free to pop in anytime.
All right. Talk to you later. Thanks for letting me on.
Good to see you. Take care. Yeah, my friend in New Mexico said they have. he had a lot of wildfire. He dealt with that for like a year, it seemed like. And then in Louisiana, they started to have wildfires too, which we never had wildfires down there because they're not getting rain. But my friend in Oregon said that the whatever that stuff is at the base of the tree, like the bark and the dried grass and stuff, whatever it is that accumulates around the base of a tree, that lightning would strike that, and that's what would start the fires where she was. In San Fran, they said, oh, I'm trying to get some trans people on to talk about pronouns, and I put it on Twitter, but I just put it on my own feed. I didn't want to use hashtags yet because it caused the whole brigade, like the trans and feminist brigade, and then it's hundreds of people attacking. So I wanted to kind of see if I could find some without putting out an open call first. But at some point, I do want to talk to some trans people. It's really bugging me why the pronoun and language things is suddenly such an issue. Because I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of people in the acceptance that they claim that they want. Us and colleague thinks this is mostly arson. That's so, why would somebody want to do that? That seems psychopathic. I think right-wing people should talk to LGBT people. I think I should talk to them more. That I'm one of them. I'm trying to even understand them. Yes, I think you're right. You can get some trans people. I don't want the cool trans. I want the kinds that get worked up about pronouns and misgendering and dead naming, because that was not a thing for almost all of my life. And suddenly it's like the biggest crisis facing Western civilization ever. And I want to see why those things suddenly became so problematic. Trans women are men. They're like the Dylans and the Blair Whites. Well, yeah. I've been trying to find some woke people to talk to as well. You'll get a strike if you. Oh, for what? For just having a conversation? What will they strike me for? They better not. I guess I should start planning that Rumble account. For just talking about, for just having a dialogue about why pronouns are so important to them. I almost want to do it I love to call lightning on myself. I do it all the time. But because I can't believe that that's like a limit. That definitely needs to be power tested. A video I made was removed for talking about trans. What were you saying about them? And then I know the algorithm, they have like bots that scrub content, but then they have where humans can flag. Like I know the Crucible got taken down because a bunch of groypers manually reported them. If you disagree, they take it personally. Yeah, I know, but in a free society, you're supposed to be able to have conversations and disagree, and nobody's responsible for your feelings. If you I have reactions all the time to things people say, but they're my feeling. Like nobody's responsible for that but me. They want people to babysit their emotions, and not only do they want people to babysit their emotions, they want to never experience an unpleasant emotion. None of that's realistic, and none of that is America. Nowhere in America did we have that until they came along and started saying that it should be a right. For hate speech, do you have it posted somewhere else where I could get an idea of what content they were going after? Agenda Against the Kids. I wanted to do one of those too. The queer theory. Which one? The one from last night with Sunday. I missed that one. And then don't get me started on McCullough. Yeah, I didn't. I might go back and watch this. Sunday is not my favorite streamer. I don't know too much about him. He's a little hard for me to take. I don't think America's gone. I think it's changing, but I still think that the America that we grew up with is there and can be preserved. But maybe that's just my idealistic fantasy. It's crazy because in the video, I even explain how I have a gay brother and don't promote hatred to that type. I've never seen you promote any type of hatred against anybody. Yeah, yeah, right. I think that, well, the nuclear family is such under attack right now that I think everybody should. I think we need as much defense and positive versions of it as we could get, because what they're putting forth as the alternative to it is straight out of 1984, Brave New World. I never had an issue with the nuclear family ever. I never imagined that people would have issues with it. I didn't have. I had a single mom, and then a stepdad at some point. But I never had like the traditional nuclear family, but I had friends that did, and I would go to their house and I'd watch them with their families, and it seemed like nothing but a positive thing for them. I was glad that they have that, and I was glad that I got to see families that had that, even though I didn't have it myself. So I don't. That's another thing I want to talk about. I want to find some woke people to come on and talk about what the hell the problem is with the nuclear family. Because from what I understand, it's along with everything else, it's everything that's associated with Western culture, because they see that as all the patriarchy. And so it psychologically is oppressive to them. Like internally, just the idea that the nuclear family exists sets a social norm that they can't meet, but they somehow feel like they should meet, except that they don't want to be associated with that society anyway, but they still feel pressured to meet their norms. And it creates this dissonance inside of themselves that causes discomfort and the feeling of being oppressed. And I don't know where that there's a psychology to it. I want to try to understand that I just don't have. Honestly, I'm scared I'll get banned whenever I start discussing trans stuff on my podcast, where I'm going to talk with my woke friend. Yeah, I know, but I never know. I've talked about all kind of shit on my channel so far. I never know when I'm crossing a line. But I think it's like I'm not going to ever know I'm crossing the line until I cross it, and then I get dinged for it. But I still think I don't want to be on a stream like having to worry about what I say. I want people to just be able to talk. And if they want to talk about trans stuff, we should be able to do that. The nuclear family is radioactive. Oh, you got a problem with it. Come on and come. Let's talk about it. It just won't sustain itself without an absurd amount of wealth. WE. Who's WE? Oh, we invented nuclear families. No. Nuclear families were around before World War II. People try and make trans talk divisive so the subject can't really. Who cares? Respect is subjective anyway. Who cares if it's talked about? That's what I'm saying. They shift from content and substance to policing respectability and civility and politeness and all that stuff. And even I've seen that even in the anti-woke circles do that, because it comes from like this upper middle class culture where that's just a value, like politeness and civility is a value for them. So even people not on the woke side do the same thing. They can't talk about anything unless it's talked about in a particular way that matches their middle class mores. I just want to talk. I don't care how you talk about it. Everybody has their own conversation style. I just want to get the content out, the subject of it, and the issues, and start. How are we going to, as a society, make decisions on how to live together around these issues if we can't all get together and start talking about them and problem solving? I didn't know your brother was gay either. Is that the one that comes on stream? That was crazy. I think talking about gay and trans in a violent way. And I don't know anybody in any of the circles that I run in that have talked about them in a violent way. Like that just doesn't happen. And another conversation I was having around safety, like psychological safety, was that like in workplace, like if a woman is in a predominantly male workplace, she can get comments that can perceived by harassment or outright sexual harassment. None of that happens on these Zooms I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about safety, I'm not talking about groups where people are threatening violence or sexually harassing each other, but that's the way that they make it seem like could happen, and that's why they need all these safety rules. Oh, the one on stream is violently anti-gay. You have an interesting family. That must be a trip. My little 16-year-old brother is an Islamist punk. That's the one that's on stream? I used to be a punk. I imagine a Islamist punk is pretty radical. Let's see. Jeff put out a controversial video on trans. You want to post a link to it? Because I want to use that to see, like, get a benchmark for what content they're leaving up. Plus, I can show it to YouTube and say, well, you let this guy's thing stay up. Steals my weed and plays in Sharia law. Oh, how funny. Dolbez, you want to hop on? I always enjoy our conversations. Or Oflamio, if you want to talk about nuclear family. You talking about like the Leave It to Beaver one from after World War II? That's just one idealized model of it. But as far as like kids with a mother and father, that wasn't a recent invention. I think it helps to, sadly, too late from the time zone thing. Okay. Yeah, I never know what time to stream, so I've been doing them at different random times. I'm going to do some in the evening too. Okay. Well, maybe after Saturday I won't be there. I have a thing to go to all day. And then they're not doing the gender fucks anymore on Sunday, I don't think. So maybe Sunday morning. What was I talking about? Well, this is not their channel. So you want to come on and talk about the nuclear family? Come on. Did I pin the link? I think I did. It should be pinned. I think, because I grew up in an extended family. We didn't just have we had grandparents and aunts and cousins and all kind of stuff. So I think the more positive, supportive people that a child has access to growing up, the better. So it doesn't have to be just a mother and father, but I think having at least, you need functional people, healthy functional people in the household, whether it's one mother, a mother and a father, two mothers, two fathers, etc., a mother and a grandmother. The more stable adults you can have, that's only going to benefit the child. But in addition to that, so I don't think you need a mother and a father if one of them is abusive. I don't think that's going to be a positive influence on the child. I think it's going to be a detriment to the child. But on top of all of that, and for men in particular, and we talked about this on my last stream, they need positive male role models. If it's not the father, an uncle, a teacher. Oh, the little sound worked. Okay. Somebody, in addition to whatever, if there's not a father, they need some father substitute, some kind of way. I don't think there is a replacement for that. Okay, let's get Hank. Hey, you want to go by Hank?
You can call me Hank, you can call me John, you can call me Ofemo. I have lots of names. It doesn't make a difference.
Okay, I will call you Hank since that's what viewers are seeing you as now.
Oh, okay.
So the nuclear. I want to read. Okay, let's see what Dobes has to say. So, the family members by blood or marriage who are primary socializers. That means parents and siblings only. Yeah, I grew up with a parent and some siblings, and then some steps. So, nuclear family. You said it's not a good. You don't think it's a good thing?
It's a good thing. It's just it's not maintainable because of how much wealth we need to maintain it. People just don't have the money because the money doesn't go as far. So nuclear families are radioactive now because the income you can make on the nuclear family requires both parents to work, so they're going to be inherently unstable compared to back in the 50s. So the good is just they can't last unless you're really rich.
So that's yeah. So that's a good point because it's not only society and culture undermining the nuclear family. There's economic reasons for it too. Because you're right. Even my dad remarried. So my stepmother, and they were a two-parent, like mother, father. We were their only kids, and we didn't live with them, but we saw them on weekends. So that was the closest to a nuclear family, like a stable two-parent family I've had. But they both worked too. Like if we had lived with them, they would have both been not around all the time. So it has to be a nuclear family that the kids have access to regularly enough to get the benefit of having that nuclear family. And if the parents are never around because they both have to work, maybe even more than one job, that also cuts into the good that the nuclear family can provide.
Yeah. So if you just had a family like just not just a nuclear family, but you have nuclear family plus the parents of both of the patriarch and matriarch, then you have six parents to go around instead of just two.
So like support for the because that's what we had. We lived across the street from my grandmother. We had an aunt a few towns over. There was always people that could. It wasn't just my mom on her own. There were always people around that could fill in and support her role.
Yes.
So
that's not a nuclear family. That's an extended family.
Yeah. But you're right though, the nuclear family does need support to like if even if it is just the mom and the dad, they're going to need support to continue as the head of this family so they could continue to stabilize the family.
Yes. And so even if you have really rich people, we had Bill Gates get divorced. We had Jeff Bezos get divorced. We have Elon Musk get divorced. All end up being the richest men at one time or another. So even we had the most money out of anyone, it's not enough to hold your family together.
What does it take? Because it definitely takes money. You just talked about how if they both have to work.
Yeah, money helps, but it's not enough.
So there's a certain financial requirement to sustain a functioning nuclear family, but then there's psychological, emotional requirements as well, like a certain amount of social, like emotional maturity, ability to manage conflict, access to external support, like emotional support, psychological support when you need it, in addition to the financial.
Yeah, it's possible to just have too much money. So, but I doubt it because there's a lot of divorces with less money across the economic stratum.
And it's probably being a little bit intelligent and intentional about how you form the family in the first place. Like doing it with a partner that's going to have the factors to give it a better chance of success. And I don't know how intentional people are about forming these, especially when they're young.
They're
about
very unintentional.
families.
They just say, "Oh, it just happens."
Does that make it an unrealistic ideal? Like, are we being naive? Because to me, we've done it successfully for many, many decades, if not centuries. But in this day and age, for whatever reason, economic, whatever, is it naive to expect the nuclear family to be the saving ideal that we're looking to it to be?
I would say affirmative. It would be naive. We need a different structure that's more stable in the environment.
What would that structure be if the nuclear family is the most superior one we've found so far?
We just agreed that's not. The extended family is more stable than nuclear family. So we have more family members helping out. You can sustain the families on less money.
Is extended family realistic? If the nuclear family is not, is it reasonable to expect the extended family to?
Yes, because we have a lot of immigrant groups coming in and extended families, and we have like 10 people per apartment, like from Mexico. Some of them not even legal. So you can come, no paperwork, but we bring enough people, you can sustain anyways. So in a harsh environment, they can keep going.
What about community? Like, I don't know, healthy communities, or if there's not an extended family, can several nuclear families come together and form some kind of supportive community for each other?
Yes. So like I have like homeschoolers down in Monongahela that's just a federation of families coming together and cross training their progeny.
I know people that work in like family. Washington State has a whole division of mental health for families and children. So I'm going to talk to some of those people because I'm curious if any of these solutions are even being implemented in any kind of way currently. Like anything that encourages communities of families, or anything that encourages supporting extended families or immigrant families. Extended families have a lot of dysfunction. They sure do. But it can be dispersed. Yes, that was the other good thing about growing up in an extended family. You weren't confined to one particular person all the time. You had a whole range of people you could go and interact and get your socialization from.
Yeah, it's like social insurance, pretty much. It's extended family acts as social insurance, because if you just had one parent that happened to be crazy, but maybe you have an aunt that's sane.
Yeah, like these middle class families that have a mother and a father and 2 kids, and then that's it. That's the only people they have to interact with in their house, and they might know the neighbors, and they might have friends at school, or maybe a few neighborhood kids, but when they're home alone at night, that's the only people they're eating dinner with and watching TV with. You're going to have a different type of socialization. It's maybe a more limited type than if you have 10 or 15 or 20 random people to associate with at any given time.
Yeah, even the Quiver Fools, which is a nuclear family, but it has a whole bunch of kids. What they do is once the kids get old enough, one kid raises the other kid, and it's so pretty much you have like a management structure. So it not the pressure's not on the parents, because all the kids can help raise the younger kids.
My mom and stepdad were crazy. The grandparents, yes, me too. The grandparents, and that was the stability and the healthy outlet for the family. I can't even imagine what my life would be like today if I didn't have that extended family, because that was the source of most of the stability and health from the family. And y'all, anyone else wants to come on, y'all can and talk about this.
So is there any? Do you have any arguments for why the nuclear family is better than extended family?
Why the nuclear is better than the extended?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that it is better. I kind of include them together. Like the ideal would be at least a nuclear family. If you have an extended family in addition to that, that's just like an added bonus to improve the efficacy of the nuclear family. But I'm not contrasting one against the other. I think they both work together. I mean, it's hard to have an extended family without a nuclear family, but you do have nuclear families without extended families. And I think even if you have that,
you can have an extended family without a nuclear family. So like a single mother that lives with her parents would tend to be an extended family.
Yeah, but that's not as common. Like we kind of had that too. So we lived across the street. So we had separate homes, but the social environment was kind of one environment. Oh yeah, no, definitely take care of your kid. That takes priority. We're sitting here talking about families and trying to help families. So definitely take care of your family.
So pretty much it sounds like more people to raise the children's better. Like a village would be better than I
think so too.
A couple of people assuming no one in the village will hurt the kids.
I agree for two reasons. I had that myself growing up, and it definitely helped me to have a range of people to, especially with me, and like my needs were a little not the ordinary to support. But in working in mental health too, I see the benefit because I help people build support networks as adults, and the more people they can include in that network, the better. You can never have too many people in your support network. So I have not only my experience from growing up, but my experience in the work that I do that supports my intuition that the more people you have to help, the better. You got to get recommended reading into okay, let's put this up.
Yeah, right now I'm experimenting with the Unitarian Universalist Church as a potential support network.
Those are the woke people.
Yeah, but I can tell. I mean, they worship me because of my skin color, so I shouldn't have too much.
You get perks. You have black I can't even say
affirmative black privilege. So just today, I went trained with a guy on using the tractor, so I can come and help them collect their leaves.
Speaking of families, hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
She's not interested.
Yeah, she's playing with toys right now. Oh. She's kind of came crawled over to me while I was getting set up here. So, say hi, Juniper. Say, look at there. Look at the screen. Say hi. You see yourself on there? No. Okay.
Yeah,
she's not interested.
Jack, I definitely.
Now she is. Now she is.
Hey, Juniper.
Hey,
Can
sweetie.
you see? Is she aware of us?
Yeah, she sees you guys. Yeah.
Look at how happy she is.
She's a happy
maybe
girl.
This is a taste of community. Maybe there can be virtual communities for kids to grow up in now.
Maybe so. I mean, I've been really kind of what you're talking. That's what I was thinking about last night when I messaged you. I was like thinking about that from our stream the day before last. Whenever she was saying the thing about the Dunbar number.
Yeah.
I was wondering if like that maybe is like part of the reason that we've, as our online friends, social circles and social media has expanded our circles and everything. I wonder if that takes away from the number of people we can kind of handle, dealing with in our actual communities. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I think that's necessarily true, or even if that's a bad thing. I just wondered if that's related at all. Because like
that's a good question. Like if you have 150 slots in your brain, does it matter if they're filled up by virtual people or in-person people? And
because they're still real people, right?
To me, they are. I can barely tell the difference.
I mean, they are real. They are. They're just not local.
You guys feel like like you could live next door. We could all be hanging out at the local pub. You feel that real to me. And there's
Yeah.
people I see every day here that I have no clue who they are. I have no
Yeah.
connection to them at all.
I feel the same way. So I just wonder if that
I,
contributes to our lack of community in the real life.
Yeah, well, that's what I discovered during COVID. If COVID taught me one thing, it taught me that we have the technology to get our community needs met outside of our immediate environment, and that's what I spent the last 3 years doing with Zoom and Discord and now StreamYard. And so it does work. It gave me more of a community than I ever had in Seattle for the 10, 12 years I was there. So I do know that it works. Like with any technology, it's a tool, and if you use it effectively,
No, I agree.
Outcomes.
I agree completely.
Jack, I definitely relate.
Found my Twin Peaks shirt. My Twin Peaks shirt.
Oh, let me see.
The Double R Diner.
Let me see.
It says the Double R Diner.
I have one too, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm seeing something totally different. I'm seeing like a American flag looking thing with a donkey.
I think is it reversed on the camera or something like that?
Negative. It's forward for me.
Okay, it says double R there at the top. It says Twin Peaks, Washington on the bottom, but anyway.
I've been to the Double R and to the Great Northern.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know they were real.
No, they're real places. It's in North Bend. It's a little village. That's where a lot of it was filmed.
I had no idea.
Jack talks about, this is something I can definitely relate to. I have a lot of, I have a lot of wounds over, even though I grew up, I had a fantastic childhood. I should have nothing to complain about, but I still missed some of the developmental needs that other people get. And I have, even with my good childhood, I have a lot of that's one of my big wounds, and I see that a lot in the groups that I'm in as well. So there's definitely, just like you have physical nutrition needs that you need to develop healthy, there are emotional and social needs that if you don't get when you're developing, it can have an impact on the entire rest of your life. She's so happy.
Yeah, she gets lots of love. She's a real happy girl. No, sure. Yeah. And I was homeschooled, so that's why I don't have a problem like homeschooling them. Like I got plenty of social stuff, but I worry about it today. Like I worry about like how homeschooling is going to affect them and stuff like that if they're going to be like socially deprived at all. But like I don't know. I don't like my daughter and 16-year-old. She goes to theater and everything, and she's got more friends than I had when I was growing up. So, and she's homeschooled too.
She's homeschooled. Yeah, as long as they have social out, like you have. There's I think there's programs out there now where they can get access to social.
Well, there were when I was a kid too.
A peer group and healthy socialization.
Yeah, there were when I was a kid too, and like I still had lots of friends. I had a really good core friend group. I mean, I had like really good close friends for most of my teenage years and everything. But yeah, but just because like I mean, I was a boy though, and I'm raising girls, so. But I have sisters too, and they seem fine as well. They're both but all my sisters are very well adjusted, and 2 of them are married. One of them has 2 kids. One of them says she's never having kids, and the other one is still just graduated college, so she's not married yet. But yeah, I have my family's really solid. But I mean, I know what you mean though. About like, I mean, there's still things like I guess I could still say like I missed out on, or like there's things that like I didn't quite get growing up that definitely create scars. But I don't think that's avoidable. I think the scars you get growing up though, it's kind of part of what makes you. It's kind of part of like I mean, you do need to deal with and face that trauma, but I think it's just part of self-integration though,
Yeah, but it's a part that people that get that don't have to go through, but I guess they go through something else.
They go through something else, and so they generate different people,
And Hank, I want to hear, because talking about community, tell me, you just started going to this Unitarian Universalist. How long has it been?
Like 6 weeks or so.
What are you hoping to find from it, and are you finding that so far?
I'm just trying it out. Basically, I've been to the building before and just tried out because I was getting annoyed with the LDS church I was doing over the summer because they tell me to stop drinking coffee and they want me to join for tithe and said, you know what, I'm gonna try this.
I have an atheist friend that found a church that he really, really likes because it's for the community. He said it provides a form of community that you just can't find anywhere else.
Were you raised Mormon, Hank?
Negative. I was
Negative,
raised
okay.
Baptist. Then I quit around when I was a teenager because the Bible didn't make sense. So I was an atheist for a while, but then I noticed that the atheists weren't pretty honest in their debating tactics. So they usually assumed Yahweh before they tried to debunk gods, which makes them really Abrahamic misotheists, the Yahweh haters, not atheists, because if you ask them to make an argument against Eris instead, they don't know where to start because they don't.
Right.
Are you a Discordian still?
Yeah, it's compatible with
Unitarian
Universalists. Yes.
I consider myself a Discordian to some degree too. So
Me too.
I mean, I have a I actually I was a writer. I've been a writer my whole life, and I for a long time I was working on a screenplay about Kerry Thornley. I think the entire story of his whole story and everything is just fascinating. I mean, I think it's like one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard from about any person's life ever. You know, like the whole thing about like him thinking he was like later on in his life he thought he was like a Manchurian candidate that killed Kennedy and stuff like that. I mean, it's fucking crazy, man. he went nuts. But I mean, but like the whole introduction, the whole story of like how his whole like the whole Eris revelation came about to him with it being the bowling alley and everything. It's one of the most insightful and also hilarious accounts of anything ever. It's just great. It's like this perfect blend of like sincerity and humor, and it's always appealed to me.
Was that one of the founders?
Yeah, Kerry Thornley. He was one of the two main founders. One of the main two people that penned the Principia Discordia. So
I've read some of the Robert Anton Wilson books, but that's about all.
He's kind of a chaos agent even amongst Discordians. So you know. Yeah.
Jack, look it up
I like his
on
books too, though.
Wikipedia. It gives that's probably the best little short summary. What is it? Discord. What's the? I forgot what the entry's on.
Discordian, yeah, Discordian.
Yeah, Discordianism. I'll put the link.
Yeah, I'd be interested to talking to you then, Hank, about I'd be interested to hear like what the reasons that you felt like the Bible didn't make sense and stuff like that were, because I personally I being the kind of fairly crazy thinker myself, I went through and all sorts of ancient documents and everything, and I actually kind of found a way the Bible does make sense, but it requires some outside reading and thinking, but it's an interesting story to like.
Yeah, I did too. You can make it make sense. You just have to sever big G God from Yahweh. That's the first thing you have to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big part of it right there. Yeah, you're on the right path already, right there, man.
But the Bible itself doesn't do that.
It does actually, because Yahweh is rarely referred to in the New Testament. So.
Well, yes, Yahweh's rarely referred to in the New Testament, and pretty much the first commandment is thou shalt not worship other gods. So that implies polytheism, because if there were no other gods, there's no reason for the first commandment.
Yep, it's a good one. There's a lot of interesting things that come down, like the Temple of Solomon and all that stuff like that, that I think are really that whenever I kind of put some things together, also Gnostic concepts and stuff like that, it really made a lot of sense to me. But that's a long conversation though. I don't have time to go through all of it right now. But we need to schedule a stream for that though. Like I don't want to go into the whole thing. It'd be a really good conversation to have.
You could get it started.
So in the summary, if we use an egregore model, the Holy Spirit and God the Father have to be two different entities to make anything make sense. Then you didn't deal with the prophets. But if the God's so absurdly powerful, he could just do any contradiction he wants. He can rewrite history. So to make anything make sense, you have to just ignore the big G God, because anything possible will happen at his will. But Yahweh is far, far weaker. He needs help. He needs money. He needs violence. So he can't just have his will just cause. That's why you have the tithing church. That's why he seems to be more. You can feel Yahweh more when in temple. Because I mean, as the LDS church, they didn't have a good idea using their model. But with my model, I could say that Yahweh's denser in temples, in churches.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to respond to that without going into a whole long, really big thing. But like that's really I like the points you're making though. It's a really you have a unique perspective on that. I appreciate that a lot. But
Well,
yeah,
part of it is the Bible is literature. It's written by humans. It's written by many different humans.
Yeah.
Yahweh or God is a character in that literature. He's a literary character. So each author is going to have their own. I'm reading Genesis right now, and just in Genesis alone, I'm seeing the different versions of Yahweh that are showing up, or God, or whoever. They even use different names depending on who wrote that particular strand of Genesis. So if people are looking for a single character called God in a anthological work like the Bible, they're not going to find it. But even going from that, like taking that as a starting point, how does that lead to a belief in an actual divinity?
Well, that's a tough question, man. That's a really tough question.
I asked the
I will
tough
say,
question.
I will say, like, the first, like, what freed me from, like, I remember I still remember the moment really clearly. I had this moment, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, whenever like I kind of did the same thing. I went through a period where I was really raised really Christian, and I got to a point where, like, some things had happened in my life, and I maybe questioned some things, and then just because of the questioning and everything, it kind of brought a lot of things questions I already had growing up in church back up and forth, and I just couldn't make it make sense. And so I went through this long period of just basically being agnostic, I guess, or maybe atheistic to agnostic. And I studied every kind of major religion I could find. I studied all the various things like that, but I couldn't really deny the pull that, like, I guess what they call Judean Christianity had on me, at least New Testament stuff. It's still there's something about that rang true, but I couldn't figure out why. And it really wasn't until I found Gnostic stuff and, like, the concept of the demiurge, the concept that the Old Testament God was not the God of the New Testament. It wasn't until I found that as a concept and, like, let myself actually think it, that, like, I mean, I was raised like that fear of God kind of thing in me. I was raised with, like, that fear of, like, of heresy kind of thing, like, afraid like lightning was going to strike me down or something like that. That's why I was raised. And so I was like, my brain was, like, closed off from that entire concept. And, like, as soon and, like, I remember being afraid to think it, being afraid to think that as an actual possibility. And as soon as I did, like, I felt like this wave of relief come over me of just, like, not because I would get struck down dead, but because I just realized that that made so much more sense. Like, they're not the same characters. The character of the God of Old Testament and the God of New Testament are not the same character at all. They're not the same thing. They don't like, one operates one is a because it makes no sense for God to be an asshole for, like, hundreds of years or thousands of years, and then suddenly it goes through a period of silence, and then he comes back like he went to anger management or something like that, and suddenly he loves everybody. It makes no sense. And it makes no sense why he would, and it also makes no sense why does God need to sacrifice himself in a human form? Why does he need to make a human sacrifice of himself in order to save mankind from sin, which is only a sin because he says so? Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense.
I mean, but like, those are the essential contradictions in Christianity that don't make any sense to me until you open up that idea of the Gnostic idea of the demiurge, and then suddenly you start seeing that, like, well, then he's not saving mankind from himself. He's saving mankind from something, like, something got in between, like the eternal God and and mankind. Something got in between there, like there's a thing there. And if you look at it's all right there it's all right there in most of Gnostic stuff when he talks about the creation myth that comes along with the first emanation in Sophia, and Sophia creating the Demiurge more or less having to be tricked into creating mankind because it steals the spark from of God that Sophia had. So it steals that from its mother Sophia, and Sophia basically tricks the Demiurge into putting it into man and gives the spark of life to man, and so then it became a thing of like so you look at it from that perspective and you can see that the entire the Old Testament is the story of this maniacal kind of like lowercase g God trying to figure out a way to steal the spark back from mankind. And the way it does this is by it constantly it wipes out most of humanity with a flood. It's trying to isolate that. It's trying to isolate it, right? It's trying to isolate the spark into the most pure human form, because the human form gets corrupted by the Nephilim. The Nephilim get introduced. Angels take wives, and I've even considered the possibility that it's possibly like why we have a double helix, as a DNA thing. Like why we have a double helix and not a single one. Like maybe it could be like it's like two entirely different species, two entirely different celestial species. I see this also narrative way. Okay, I'm not necessarily saying this is all literal to me. I'm saying this is like the way that narratively it makes sense to me. I figured out like how narratively the whole thing of the Bible actually has like an A to B to B C to kind of deep connection to it. And so at one point the Grigori, the Watchers, they step in and mate with the human beings, or possibly just do like genetic experiments or something and splice their DNA into the mankind in order to keep Yahweh or the Demiurge from being able to easily extract that spark back. So basically it corrupts the bloodline enough so that it's not pure enough to re-extract the spark. So Yahweh spends all this time trying to like find the most pure blood of them, and then let them build up, and then it's like trying to refine gold, right? He tries to let it like the genetic population spread out, and then he puts them in slavery and wipes out most of them. He continually lets the Jewish people become populous, become more and more populous, and then wipes them out. And he does this over and over. It's a cycle that happens over and over until you get to Solomon's temple. When in David itself is said to be like this chosen one that's going to build the temple. It's going to be this. So it's like it's all building up to this thing where he's trying to create this perfect vessel, and that matches up with what comes in. See, I told you I can't. I can go too fast on this. The Freemasonry has this whole theory about the Temple of Solomon, and Temple of Solomon being like this whole story about this builder named Hiram Abiff, and how Hiram is like this rather he seems like almost like a really innocent type character. There's also Hiram, king of Tyre. There's two Hirams for some reason, but anyway, the whole thing comes down to like this character of Hiram is very similar to the character of Christ. Christ's entire the passion of the Christ is following the same stations as a Hiram supposedly went through in the temple whenever he gets led through this whole thing, and it's supposedly it matches up with the passion thing that you see in the Bible with Christ. And so it's like, so my theory is that the Antichrist was created at the Temple of Solomon. The Antichrist actually was Solomon. Solomon became a vessel for Yahweh to transubstantiate into human form, but it didn't really work per se. But he created himself as the Antichrist, which is why the entire Jewish story just stops there. They don't.
What do you base that on? Your own critical intuition.
There's a really funny thing about Revelations. Revelation is the whole thing about 666, right? Okay, so there's only one other place in the Bible that the number 666 is ever used, and it is in Kings, 2 Kings, in reference to Solomon, saying that Solomon in those days, I think per month or per year, was able to was producing 666 talents of gold. And the specific words in the Revelation say that this takes wisdom. First of all, Solomon is a character that's intrinsically connected with the concept of wisdom. This takes wisdom. This is the number is the number of a man, and that number is 666. So the only other place, I mean, you can do a search, like a simple search on it, that 666 comes up in the Bible is in Second Kings, and it seems like it doesn't seem like a terribly coded thing in that sense, that he's literally saying the Antichrist, the number of the Antichrist is the number of a man. That number, I don't believe Revelations is a prophetic document. I think it is actually the history of the world told in Gnostic form. That's my theory in Revelations.
By one man who might have been
Yeah.
on mushroom.
Hi, sure.
So I got a syllogism that actually gets the point. I'm a very shallow thinker. So it's pretty simple. So premise 1, might makes right. Premise 2, God is almighty. Conclusion 1, God is alrighty. So since Abrahamists confabulate Yahweh with the big G God, that's how they get to their conclusion. So whatever Yahweh's opinions must be universal law. That's how they get there.
Okay.
This is all from fiction, though. And
Sure.
what you said about like the Israel, like purifying the Israelites gradually, whatever, that's exactly the type of myth or story that a people that wanted to see themselves as becoming more elevated than the rest of humanity would tell about themselves. So it's
Sure,
like
but
looking back,
it's really
that's
negative, though.
their narrative that they would put forth for their own.
They were like slaves. They're like
Indeed.
cattle. They're just being used, though. They were just being used just they could be vessels for this demiurgical creation to try to take the spark. That's that. I mean, like I said, I see it in terms of
cattle though. They're the Kobe beef.
The what?
yeah, they're like Kobe beef, right? Exactly. They're like a better form of cattle, right?
Kobe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like my theory is basically that like that the Antichrist was created in the Temple of Solomon, and then basically that because of just like the way that balance works, basically as above so below, the concept of alchemy, which is all throughout all Gnostic things, and it's all throughout the Bible too. It's in many different places. Because of that necessitated Christ's creation. Christ there from that point the path was set that Christ would inevitably be born, and therefore would cancel out the Antichrist thing. I'm telling you, like this is, I see this as in a narrative form. I see it as like,
Yeah,
like a big narrative epic.
That was my question. Because this is all narrative, is there anything that connects it to actual reality, like normal living?
I mean,
reality?
like we do know we know that
makes sense
There's no
narratively.
universe that
Is there any
Egypt.
reason to connect it to anything outside of the narrative?
Egypt exists, and it's in the Bible too.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
does-
there's lots of these things. Lots of these things have historical significance. I mean, they do have. There is historically these
I mean,
places,
I could write
these
a
names.
fantasy story set in Egypt.
Sure, you
Yeah,
could.
I mean,
Yeah.
Spider-Man lives in New York, but I haven't.
But it was written.
TV.
This was written at that time, though. These things were written at that time. It's just the way I made it make sense. I'm not trying to convert anybody here. I'm just saying this is how I made sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense narratively, exactly like you said. But does it make sense as a description or reflection of anything in the real? Like, can you move from narrative sense to belief in something?
so
Well,
I
Weird.
can believe it, but I mean, the magical powers that Jesus promised, I don't have. I can believe it, but I can't do better miracles than Jesus, unless you count telephony, which is how we're communicating on the internet across from 3 different locations. I mean, is telephony a better miracle than anything Jesus did? It's debatable.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think I do have ways to connect it, but that's a much longer, more. I mean, I was skimming the cliff notes of like the whole thing. I mean, like to present my whole thesis argument there. It's a much bigger thing. Do I apply it to my life? I do to some degree. I mean, I don't really live by it though. I don't really live by it. It's just that I see the truth in it. I see that there's a truth in it that makes sense to me, that just kind of resonates with me. You know, it's not really about like I believe it as a. It's not like I think that Christ.
It's a myth. It's myth.
It's a myth. Yeah, it's the myth that resonates best with me, and it's the version of it that I found. And ultimately, I also find that I think that Christ has generally the teachings of Christ are generally very good, just generally good teachings. You know, he generally taught very wise, very in some cases very deep, wise things that I think that apply to anybody. So I see no really, but I also see that, like, if there is if salvation through Christ is something that exists or something like that, then it probably doesn't need that much. You probably, if it exists, it doesn't really require that much, that level of deep introspection. But for someone like me, for me to even be able to even approach it in a way that just doesn't seem like something that just makes no sense at all, I had to go into it and try to tear it apart to figure out what is about it that rings true for me. And that's how I did that. I went through it because I couldn't escape it. My whole life I kept trying to run away from that. And I kept trying to say no, I don't believe it, because it's all bullshit. And yet it would always something about it always called me back to it. And maybe it was just the way I was raised with it or something like that, but nothing else I was raised on really holds that kind of significance to me. So I don't know. It's something about it seems true to me. But
do you believe in an afterlife?
I don't know. I don't know. I think on that one I'll defer to what Jordan Peterson. I try to live as though, I live as if that I do anyway, because I see no advantage in living as though there isn't one.
There's an advantage. I don't have to worry about being punished with someone.
Do what, Hank?
I don't believe in the concept of sin, though.
Being judged by someone else for my conduct.
Yeah, I don't believe in the concept of sin, though. So I doesn't believe. I think the concept of sin was created by the Demiurge as a way to control his people.
Yeah, sin equals death.
Yeah. See, that's why I think that what Christ says, he says he did not. He gets rid of all the commandments. He says there's only 2 commandments: love your God with all your mind, body, heart, and soul. To love your neighbor as yourself. It's only 2 commandments you need to follow. And really, if you do follow those 2 commandments, if you live as though there is a God and that, it's something that but basically the only thing that you really have to live by is loving your neighbor as yourself, which doesn't necessarily mean your literal neighbor, but the person. I think that what it means to a neighbor is the person, the people around you, the people that you care about, loving those people and treating them as you would treat yourself. I think that if you could follow those two principles.
Well, Jefferson disagreed. We had more stuff in there. He had you can just read a Jefferson Bible. It's longer than that.
Yeah, but I mean, he does say that there's only 2 commandments you need to follow. Directly, he says that. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's I'm not. I mean, I don't. Like I said, I'm not a hardcore religious person. Okay, I see it in terms of narrative. So I'm not trying to tell anybody you need to believe as I believe. I do kind of think that there probably is something beyond this life, but I don't know what that means though exactly. I don't know to what degree. I mean, there's a part of me that seriously wonders if we're not living in a simulation. So, I mean,
our brains are simulating reality for us right now.
Yes,
right.
Yes, we are. It does computations. Yeah. We are a sensory system.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm saying because I already have those kind of thoughts in my head already. So it's not really. I don't believe in a heaven afterlife you see people talk about in church, stuff like that. I don't believe in clouds and streets of gold and stuff like that. I don't believe in that. But I think that life is necessarily over when we die. I don't know.
Well, we know it's not because our parts will be reused in other living organisms.
Oh, there you go.
Because what?
Our parts that compose us will be reused in other organisms.
Yeah, but our consciousness won't. Our consciousness, there's an end to consciousness.
How do you know?
Why isn't there? Why wouldn't there be? Without a brain. If the brain composes to dust and ash, where's what's the substrate that the consciousness has to?
Do you believe in a soul?
Do I believe in soul? Soul doesn't make sense to me.
Not anything.
I'm an idealist.
You need a body. Everything else depends on a human body. There's nothing metaphysical that can exist absent a body for it to emerge from.
I do kind of believe in a soul, but
I guess I'm a naturalist because I believe that.
Yeah, you're a physicalist. I'm an idealist. So a corporation.
I guess I'm a spiritualist, so I guess we form the Trinity, then, don't we?
No, I don't believe there's anything. I'm not necessarily a strict materialist, but I don't believe there's anything supernatural.
It's just funny.
I think emerge from or supervene onto the physical.
The supernatural is a weasel word. It means something that doesn't exist. So I would never insert supernatural. But you have extended objects that are made out of people or just infrastructure that can run. That's some people would say without a body, even though that doesn't make sense either. But you have extended objects called corporations that we know about because it's the Secretary of State has them on record, and they're a bunch of operators and bank accounts and buildings that compose them.
But that's not me. It makes complete sense to me that your consciousness would end, like would not survive the end of your brain. Like once your brain ends, your consciousness would end with it. I have no reason to think that without a brain, your consciousness is somehow still going to be conscious of yourself in the same way.
I think quantum mechanics calls that into question itself.
The question of who?
Just that the concept of consciousness necessarily ends with the brain. I think quantum mechanics calls that into question on its own. Just the way that the quantum material acts and acts, it defies all kinds of like concrete interpretations of reality.
So Jeff, what's your definition of consciousness?
Awareness, being aware, awareness of myself, perception, reaction.
That's a really hard question.
When I'm asleep,
trying to define
I'm not
consciousness.
conscious, other than when I'm dreaming. When I'm passed out, I'm not conscious. So it's when I'm aware that I'm conscious. That I'm conscious.
So when you're sleeping, are you dead?
I'm not conscious. I have no way to. I'm not aware of myself. It's oblivion. It's void. I'm only conscious of myself when I'm waking, and I'm sober enough to be aware of myself.
So you think?
Because I've had blackouts where I was active and functioning, but I have no memory or consciousness of it at all.
Okay, so consciousness for you is like a reflective brain process that tells you, orients you where you are. It's like
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Like,
I just want to say, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that viewpoint. I just, just say my life has not proven that to me. But I don't know. See, like, it's really strange to think that I would consider myself to be like completely fully, like, my consciousness, I don't feel like disappears when I go to sleep. I feel like it starts dreaming, and therefore
But only when you dream. You're not dreaming the whole time you're asleep.
That's
like,
true.
You're
That's
only
true.
aware of it the few little moments that you're
true.
conscious of your dreams. And I had an entire life until about 2.5 years old that I have no memory or consciousness of it all. But I was alive as a toddler, and then my conscious memories start about 2.5, 3, somewhere around there. So that's when my actual consciousness starts, where there's a continuity from that point to now. So even as a living being, I didn't even always have consciousness.
Then what kind of like consciousness for you hasn't to do with like the animation of the body or anything like that? Consciousness isn't required for a living.
Yeah, I guess there's a continuity to it. It has to be able to continue itself through its own awareness somehow to be conscious. You have to be conscious of something.
Yeah, to me, I think that in itself kind of like shows, like, because like I look at my daughter, she won't remember any of this part of her life either, right? But there's definitely like you're learning in those time period in that time though, like, so like there is something there
because you're not conscious of it.
Maybe well, you are at the time. I cannot believe, like, I look at her, she's definitely conscious of something. It may not be conscious the same way we are, and the same like memories are formed, but it's consciousness you like almost like based in memory, like what you can remember.
Maybe
I would say
might be a component of memory to it.
So the way you're using consciousness, I would use the word sentient there. So
use the word what?
Sentience.
Yeah.
Sentience, right.
So yeah, when you use consciousness, I would use sentience.
It's more than sentient, because plants and animals can be
less
sentient.
than sentience in my view, because consciousness is just that the object reacts to stimulus. So
maybe there's an ability to represent it to itself.
Yeah, I call that sentience.
I call it consciousness.
Yeah.
It's one of those places where like where like you have to really be careful with language because like it seems like a lot of
Yeah,
different
we're
people
going
have
to
a
get
lot of
to semantics, but that's always
semantics,
important in
yeah.
these kind of discussions anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's important to establish the ground floor of what things mean, even though we kind of think that we all have the same concept. But when it comes to metaphysical, because even still, consciousness is still kind of a metaphysical concept. Like it's not even something that you
Well,
consciousness can
it's
be.
if you're a strict materialist or a physicalist, it's metaphysical in the sense of it's a non-material
It's all material. It
phenomenon.
can't be
But I
measured.
use metaphysical in the sense of supernatural or spiritual, or something
So-
existing beyond the material universe.
So I'm
But consciousness does though.
I don't. I personally.
Yeah, but not in a. It's an emergent phenomenon from the material universe, and it's contained within the framework of materialism. There's
So-
no need to posit anything supernatural to account for consciousness.
Well, I'm not saying it's supernatural.
We can't posit something supernatural because
But it's not
supernatural
physical,
things do not affect the universe by definition. So if you want to make a story about something doing something to the universe, then you can't use anything supernatural because they don't affect the universe. So all supernatural things are irrelevant in a presentation. They're removable.
Okay, yeah.
Talcott's getting into something that we're talking about too. I'm using consciousness in a very particular way, I guess. Because so 1-year-old baby that touches a stove is conscious of it, but not in the way. Just like I was conscious, I did all kind of things when I was blacked out under alcohol that I was probably aware of at the time, or I would not have been able to do them. But I was not conscious of. I had a friend when I was younger who drove home from the bar completely drunk and has no memory of even getting in his car and driving home. How did he make it? He had to have enough consciousness to navigate the traffic lights and get home, but he has no consciousness of actually doing that. So I've had those kind of experiences.
Yeah, I think you're using the term sloppily, and that's why you get into issues.
But consciousness is when I'm aware that I'm conscious. I have to know that it's happening.
Yeah, I call that sentience. To avoid
I think a sentience is just reactivity. Like there's certain plants that are sentient. An animal can be sentient without being.
You're swapping.
Sentient to me is a lower level.
You're swapping in terms.
We could call it sapience, maybe.
You're swapping the terms against just normal usage, so it's going to confuse everyone. Because
I don't think I'm using it in any bizarre way, like any different.
You're swapping the definition of being conscious sentience against common parlance.
But I have to pee real quick, so y'all keep talking. But I'll be right back.
All right, man.
But yeah, Jeff is swapping consciousness and sentience against the typical way we use it. So
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say it's just sound like he has like the opposite kind of definitions of that. But I still can understand what he's talking about though.
Yeah, I understand what he's talking about, but that's why people are confused in the YouTube comments because he's swapping the usage. They're consistent, but these can confuse everyone because everyone, pretty much most people use sentience as a higher form of self-reflection than consciousness. So like a plant is conscious because it will react to the sunlight, but it's not sentient because it doesn't have high level reflection.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I hadn't actually broken it down that far in my mind. I break. It's kind of funny how like just different people like the way they. It seems like I would have thought about that in that much detail, but I never really had thought much. There's a difference between consciousness and sentience. I mean, I recognize those different terms, but I never really thought about it in that detailed of a way before. But that's really good. That's a really good point. I was gonna say too. I think I did kind of respond to you, Jack. But like I was saying that you said you had 3 hours of lucid dreams this morning, and like I also had lucid dreams like last night this morning. It's the first time I think I've had a lucid dream in a long time. So I just thought that was really weird that you mentioned that. Like I wasn't even something I was even going to mention because like it's just kind of a weird thing that I hadn't really experienced in a long time. But well, there you go though. So.
Yeah, I have lucid dreams all the time. Plus I have topas, so it's not a weird thing for me. It's not.
I used to whenever I was younger. I used to have lucid dream all the time, and then I had one lucid dream that actually kind of like scared me to the point like that I woke up like I don't think my brain would let me go back there again. I don't know for a long time, but I had one like last night, and so it's strange.
Yeah,
Right,
right now, I just try to push my fear. I need to get more powerful. So if I'm scared, then I'm more motivated and get more done, and that's time.
Well, that's good. That's really cool that you can use the. That's really cool that you use that fear for motivation like that. That's good. Because fear can be rather powerful, so if you can use it to your own advantage, it's really cool.
What's
Yeah.
the fear?
But I got just a bunch of stuff, but I use fear as a motivator to get more stuff done in less time because I really can't rely on other people as much as one would hope. So I have to get stronger. So I'll use fear to motivate me to do more stuff, whatever it is.
Oh, just in general.
Yes, just in general. Like I don't want to do something. Okay, I'm gonna do it anyways. Unless I have a really good reason why I shouldn't bother. If it's just, I just don't want to, but that's not good enough. So I might as well dip my dough in it anyways and find out.
What can we program her consciousness with while we have the opportunity?
I just when it comes to kids, I just try to program them with so much love and compassion and just generally being open to. So we try to now that she can kind of eat a little bit here and there, like she started to eat.
She's so
really
happy.
Yeah.
I love her energy.
She is the happiest. I mean, our first timer was a happy kid too, but she wasn't like this one bounces. She's just the happiest little kid. We take her out with us. We take her to the store or the mall or whatever, just to walk around, just to get out because it's too hot here to walk outdoors. So like we have to go to like the mall and walk around or something like that. And like people stop us. Like we get stopped like multiple times every time we go out. She's the happiest baby I've ever seen. And like I'm just like and I guess whenever I don't really pay attention to a lot of people's babies, but I guess they're right. Like I don't really see many other babies that just like she rides around like a harness thing like this on my chest, and she just like hangs out there and just kind of like walks around, waves at people, and smiles at them, and just she's just a very very happy kid.
That's so.
I don't. No, we try to encourage as much as possible. That's why I'm sitting here bouncing her like that because that's what she wants to do. She wants to bounce. She loves to bounce. She gets a lot of exercise this way too. She is strong, man. Like she hit me yesterday with one of her toys, and like it made like a rather sizable bruise on my knee. Like I was like, holy crap, how did you do that? Like I mean, it hurt at the time, but I didn't think she hit me that hard. Like, yeah, she bruised me pretty badly. She wasn't trying to. She wasn't trying to hit anything. She's just playing with her toy. But anyway, this kid is strong, man. She was a preemie too. She was premature. She was only 4 pounds 9 ounces when she was born. She was like, I mean, she fit like right here on my forearm, just like right between here and there. And now look at her. She's like, she's solid as she's only 8 months old. I mean, God, she's grown so much in just like the last 8 months. She's giggly too. You hear? She likes it when she like sometimes like whenever I was on stream the other day with you, and like Lindsay and her were downstairs and they saw it on they saw that the thumbnail on YouTube actually you could see like both of us on there, so she clicked on it and stuff, and she said Junior sitting there and yelled at the TV and stuff. It was like
she saw her daddy on TV.
Yeah, she's like, why is Daddy up there? Like, what is he doing? She's like, hi guys, I'm gonna podcast now. This is my show now. It's a Juniper show.
She's definitely stealing it. We stopped talking about God and consciousness and everything.
Well, she came over to me and she was like, she hit me on the back and was like yelling at me, so I had to pick her up. Anyway, yeah. So Jack, you said when you can't breathe well, you have a lucid dream more. That's scary. Like whenever I'm not breathing well and if I fall asleep too shallowly, I have that awful fucking sleep paralysis thing happen to me. I've had it happen a few times, and and sleep paralysis will really fucks with your head, man. It really does feel like
what?
I mean, sleep paralysis.
Oh, sleep paralysis.
You ever had that happen to you before?
Mm-mm.
Dude, it's not fun. You have?
Yeah. Yes.
That's not fun. I do not recommend it for anyone. It feels like you're dying in this weird way. Like it feels like there's something pressing down your chest, and you're aware, but you can't open your eyes and you can't breathe. It feels you can't speak or something like that.
That would be freaky.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like there's a whole documentary on it called I can't remember what it's called now, but there's there's a documentary about people that have sleep paralysis, and it actually does a really good job of like visualizing what it actually feels like to be in sleep paralysis, and it's very actually visualized it really well, and it's it feels like a demon attack. Like you said, it feels like a demon attack. He didn't feel alone. That's the truth. You don't feel alone. You feel a presence in the room. You feel you try to speak. You try to, like, you're aware. It's like you're aware. You can even sometimes open your eyes, but you can't move. And you're trying to, like, scream or something, but you can't, like, it feels like you're being, like, they say that's where they think a lot of alien abduction stories. They say that's where they think a lot of them came from, is sleep paralysis, because it feels like something has taken control of your body, and sometimes you can even feel yourself like you're floating and things like that. I never felt that, but I mean, some people have experienced that. So, and like what I have experienced sleep paralysis makes me believe anybody's story said that they had when they had it, I believe it, because, like, it feels like anything could happen to you, and none of it feels good. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced by far.
I hope I never feel it.
I hope you don't either. I would not wish it on anyone. I really wouldn't. Although, I mean, it's the closest thing to a true hallucinogenic experience I've ever had. I'll say that much, because I've never hallucinated on. I've taken lots of hallucinogen stuff. I've never really had a real.
Well, you've actually done the drugs, but you've never hallucinated.
Yeah, I've done acid. I've done shrooms many times. I've experienced, like, hallucinogenic type effects, but I've never actually had anything that actually felt truly hallucinogenic. I've never, like, people talk about, like, they do this and they like see little people dancing, or like they see they talk to a tree or whatever. They have all these things happen. I've heard these stories from tons of people, and I never had anything where I never actually saw anything or actually felt anything that I didn't know at the time was happening. I knew it was happening because of the drug or whatever, and never in my brain always, like, rationalized everything. So I never really had that. I never had that true psychedelic experience that some people have, but, like, sleep paralysis is closest thing, or lucid dreaming too. Probably the other closest thing to something I've experienced. That experience is close to, like, something hallucinogenic. But yeah, like sleep paralysis is, like, one of those things that actually makes me. It actually kind of forces you to confront the ideas of spirituality to a degree that I never had to before.
I put those, like, they're like medium scary things. They're like the medium.
Oh man, you must have experienced some really scary things then.
Yeah, for me, it's dealing with unsavory people or dealing with scammers. That scares me more than lucid dreaming, because I feel like or sleep paralysis. I feel like my body, my body, I'll just activate and take control, and I'll probably be fine. But with the scammers, you kind of don't know what will happen, so you have to be armed and stuff. You have to be armed. You have to be careful. So that scares me more.
Okay, well, I can understand that. Like, it's more of a mortal physical danger type thing situation. You talking about, like, being like with criminals, or are you being, like, just scammers like on the phone, or, like, what do you mean by scammers?
They're all criminals. But
I know. I mean, being like in person, like being, like, in the room with someone that has a gun on you or something like that. I mean, what do you mean?
Well, the scammers rarely have a gun. They make violent threats, but they can't. I found from personal experiences that they can't act on their threats. And if they can, they're too chicken shit to do anything. But they could really, if you screw up, they could really take your whole livelihood and be too hard to build back up. But maybe you can build back up, but I can't find too much references. I can't find references of people where we lost everything, where I got it back. That's so super rare. I can't find anything.
No, I mean, I mean, in a way, kind of got scammed for most of the money I had and stuff like that. But I mean, at the same time, like, I'm still building back. It takes time, but I didn't really get scammed. It wasn't like a scammer type thing. I mean, like, it was just like people did lie to me and stuff like that. But they weren't trying to take my money per se, but they still deceived me about some things. So I was going through a time period though where I was not thinking clearly, because I was in kind of a desperate situation because, like, of everything that was going on in my family, and so I was just a lot more susceptible to believing bullshit at the time. So. But I understand what you mean, though. I mean, I completely understand that perspective entirely. That's a very understandable perspective.
Yeah, but I'm kind of shallow thinker, so I'm always been perceptible for believing bullshit. So what I do now to avoid the problem is I'll just, okay, you got your narrative, keep running it. When it's a scam, they'll say something that just doesn't connect. That it just falls off a cliff.
Right.
You
Yeah.
didn't think that far.
Have you ever messed with a scammer know that someone's trying to scam you and just kind of
Oh,
let
yeah.
them along? Yeah.
Yeah,
I've only
absolutely.
done that like twice, but I must admit it felt good at the time.
I think I tried like a couple tens of times.
Someone started messaging me on like Facebook, and it was like trying to pretend like they were like some like girl. I mean, I wasn't like trying to date anybody anyway. I was already married and everything, but like they tried and just like this, but they said something that like intrigued me at the time. And I was like, what the hell is this about? And then it wasn't long for they started trying to talk about like crypto DeFi stuff like that. I was like, oh, I know what this is. I know this is.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah,
one of those like
I talked
those
to you on my
pig,
Telegram. Yeah,
those pig butcher
that's it.
scams. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to get you on Telegram because it's encrypted enough that they can dodge moderation longer.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I messed with somebody like that. Just kind of like it was like pretending like I was doing all this stuff, and like they even sent me like $50 in what was it, like in Ethereum or something like that. But
Yeah,
I gave it back to them. I didn't want any kind of like. I called them out really closely after, but
That baby is still going.
yeah, no, she's still going.
She's
she
nuclear powered.
she went back to her mama. She went back to mama over here. She's still smiling though. She's still smiling. She is. Yeah. Well, guys, actually, I've got to go run make some food for everybody. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and head out. But are you gonna stream tonight too, Jeff?
Yeah, I probably will. I'll probably end this one soon because I have something this afternoon, and then after that, maybe about 7:00 your time.
7:00 my time. Okay.
And then
Okay.
tonight's Big Brother, so I'll have to break to watch that, and then I might come on after and do a late night.
Okay. Yeah. Like I think it's funny that you watch Big Brother. It's not a show that I hear about people watching.
I was a reality TV addict. When I lived in Vegas, when like in the 2000s, when reality TV first came out, we had TiVo.
Mhm.
I was up to 41 shows a week that we had stored, reality shows that we had stored on the TiVo to watch, and somehow we watched every one of them each week.
Well, that's funny. When I first moved to Vegas, of course, this wasn't wasn't late. That wasn't early 2000s. It was much later than that. But like 2010, I guess. But it was whenever The Apprentice's second season was on. Like
Yeah.
I never
You're
watched
fired.
I never watched the show before that, but like the guy I moved down there with, the director of the movie that we were working on. He was just addicted to that show, and like it was funny because he had got this giant projector and like a big 50-foot screen that he put in the living room and everything like that, so he could watch all these movies and everything like that. But he didn't get the right cable for like the first like several months. He had to order it from somewhere, and so it was in black and white. So we had this giant 50-foot black and white television, but we watched The Apprentice every week it came on, and that's the only time I've ever really like watched much reality television. But like I watched that entire season like from beginning to end. So
The second one.
in black and white, yeah, the second season of The Apprentice, and I watched the entire on a giant television in black and white surround sound. So it was very, very strange. But anyway, guys,
I really only watch Survivor and Big Brother. That's all I'm down to, and I watch The Mole. That's my favorite, but they don't do the U.S. Mole sucks. I watch some of the international versions, and that's really it.
Well, she's hungry, so I got to go get a bottle and stuff, guys. So, but I will.
Okay, I might see you later.
I'll see you tonight. I'll definitely come
I'll be
on
around.
tonight.
And
all right,
if you haven't, I don't care if you like and all that. Although tell me it helps the algorithm.
Oh,
but if you haven't
I always
subscribed
do.
Yet, huh?
I always do. Yeah.
Oh, I was meant the audience. Whoever's watching.
Oh.
If you haven't subscribed yet, that's the best way to tell when I'm on live because I never know what time of day I'm going to do it. So if you subscribe, then you'll see it on YouTube.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well,
everybody definitely needs to like and subscribe because it really. I mean, I've seen it help with the algorithm.
The algorithm. What is that? That just is going to feed it to more strangers that are going to show up.
Pretty much, yeah. But more people. Not even necessarily strangers. Just people that like. It might just be people that also watch Paul or something like that. That just like they get to know. It'll show up in the recommended. It shows up in people's recommended. If it's going to be recommended to them, like more, yeah. If they subscribe, it'll usually be at the beginning. Like if you're live streaming, usually it's like the first recommended thing for at least a little while. But then, after that, it kind of goes away. So
if you feel moved to like it, then please do. But if you want to,
I like
like
every if I even a little bit like a video, I always like it because I know that it ultimately helps the creator and it doesn't cost you anything. So it doesn't cost any money. So
I don't want to become one of those. Don't forget to like and subscribe, people.
I know I hate that too. And like
I hate that in
I've always sworn that I
YouTube.
would never do that shit, but like I probably will if I ever start YouTubing. So anyway, I'll see you guys later.
Take care.
So I'm off, so I could probably pop back on if I don't get busy with something.
Okay, I'll be on later today. I have a thing this afternoon, but then after that, probably around 7 Central, I'll be on.
Yeah, I'll be working on your special requests. I just need to ask around.
Okay, well, it was good talking today, and I'll maybe see you later.
Okay.
All right.
See ya.
Well, see you. Ghost Hunters. I used to watch. They had this one where celebrities would go into this haunted house, and it was like night vision camera. I forgot what it was called, and they had like a different group of celebrities each episode. Celebrity Paranormal in the 2000s. I used to watch that one. I thought you were going cook. What is? Yeah, I should wrap up here and go feed myself and take care of basic bodily needs, and not become too much of a streaming addict. And so I'll do that. I will play myself out. Thank everyone for watching. Subscribe if you want. I hope to do more of these, as many as I can, at least one a day, sometimes more. I'll be back probably this evening around 7 p.m. Central. Have a good rest of your day, and maybe see you then.